Brian, we are live, rocking and rolling.
Live and ready to rock.
Thanks for joining me today to talk about leadership and share some thoughts and experiences with the folks that may be listening. So I appreciate you being here, brother.
Yeah, dude. Cool topic. Great. And I think it's timely for people, whether they believe they're a leader or not. I always say you are, right? You lead yourself and then you have an opportunity to lead others. So no matter where you are in that journey, we're going to have some fun with it and break it down.
Let's go. Talking about the journey, man, I'd love to just kind of hear your leadership journey, right? I know the stats, I know what you've done and in the industries you've focused on, but when did you really start to focus on this thing called leadership and really working towards to becoming a better leader?
It goes back for me, like I think about, this my soccer background, and most people that know me know, soccer was a big thing. It helped me get to college and kept me out of a lot of trouble and was actually kind of a pathway and was really where I spent a lot of time. I mean, thousands upon thousands of hours on a soccer field. And I remember my first dose and kind of taste of leadership was seeing others on the soccer field and they're captains on the team, right? So there's 11 players that are playing, but the coaches and many times the players will vote. And so, like in high school and club, they will pick a leader. And I was fortunate at an early age, partly because of my abilities, right? That was recognized, but also it was who had a voice, who was willing to speak up, and in essence, even as a teenager, like who was going to lead on the
Yeah.
field, right? Because the coach can't come on the field. You have to have leaders on the field. So my first dose was seeing players older than me, watching them, people that were captains, and then I was fortunate enough to be a captain myself. And then you get to the next level and playing with like the national team, and you go, wow, there's a whole nother level of people. And I was fortunate my last 2 years of high school, my last 2 years, my junior and senior year of college, I was voted to be captain. And I always say that was my first real, hey, Brian, leadership matters on and off the field. And many times, people go, oh, but, I wasn't an athlete and I didn't play this level or that level. And I always share with people, it doesn't matter what level you've played sports or not played sports. The reality is, for all of us, you have an ability to be a captain. If you're a mom, a dad, brother, sister, you're leading a team, you're part of a team. You can lead up the organization, you can lead down the organization. I'll tell you the biggest thing I learned, Jim, through all that, people always ask, like, what did you learn through that? Is there's physical abilities and skills, right, that can get you only so far in life, business, sports, and all that. There is an entire mental side to this that for many of us, you're just one decision away from saying, I'm going to become a better leader.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is that journey from a teenager to even now, just turning 47, I am still learning. I'm
Yeah.
still studying. I'm still curious about what makes a great leader. I've been exposed to great leaders. I've been exposed to not so great leaders. And you can learn from both. And so that's what I invite everybody to consider is whether you've had great leaders, if you've had leaders that were poor at that,
Totally.
learn, emulate the greats, and then also recognize the things that you didn't like or were not the things that you would ever want to have those traits in yourself as a leader.
Totally, totally. Man, powerful. Coming in hot, Brian. I love it. I love it. Um, you talked about on the field and off the field, right? And I think our field is where we play, right? And we show up and we compete and we do the things. And I love how you brought it back to your field, your where you play. You can be on a team, you can lead the team, you can lead the organization, you can lead the department. You can lead a subset of peers around you without a title, without a supervisor role, without a director or management role, right? And I think that's the beauty of leadership because it's so holistic. It appears in everything we can do, and it appears in things that we may not want to do, but we get tasked with that role or we absorb that role. Um, for you in your life and in your experiences, being that captain, being that leader, what's some of the things that you focused on immediately? And the reason why I asked this question is because I want to talk specifically to the folks that have been in leadership for maybe just a couple of years,
Yeah.
right? They were tasked with it. You had mentioned something, your abilities, right? How you played were great. There's a lot of folks that play in the workspace and they do great things and they hit goals and they accomplish. And now all of a sudden they've got a team of 10. Now all of a sudden they're, hey, we're going to move you over to this department. and it's
Mhm.
new, and it's there's so much to learn, and there's new roles and responsibilities. What was the first thing that you focused on when you were only a couple years into this leadership thing and really wanted to make that impact?
Here's the number one rule. Doesn't matter if it's sports, business, life. You have to be the example. And there is a certain standard at which you set. And I remember back in college, right? You think about there's a lot of temptations for people to just get distracted, right? Whether it's from their schoolwork or they're out partying and doing things. And we had a mission. And the mission was we wanted to win the conference, right? We wanted to go on to the tournament. We wanted to win games and represent ourselves. And for all of us in life, you have goals, you have dreams, you have these aspirations until you can become the example and you can bridge this gap between where you are. We all have this, by the way, where you are today and where you want to be. And here's what I'm going to invite you to consider is when you get there, it's like when you climb the mountain and you realize, I got to climb another mountain. I got to climb another mountain. Like this is a never ending journey and process. And so I just want to invite people to realize this whole journey that I'm telling you about being an example is once you get to the next level, it's like in Mario or something, right? There's another level and it's waiting on you. But you can't get to the next level. You can't get to level 4 or 5 unless you've gone through 1, 2, and 3. Most people want to skip that entire step in the process. They see guys like you or me, and you're speaking on stages, or you've, in some ways, accomplished something they want to accomplish, whatever it is, right? And they go, man, I want that. And everybody wants the fast track. But what I would encourage you is when you become the example and you put the reps in and you actually put the time in, you actually learn a lot about who you are. And one of my great mentors would always share is, Brian, you need to have the emotional intelligence to recognize the patterns in your life. When do you fall off track? Why do you fall off track? When your temper flares up, you get upset, you get angry, you get frustrated, you get sad. Why? And dig beneath that. Most people won't actually do that inner work. And it's not some woo-ha kind of stuff. It is, I know I'm wired. God wired me a certain way.
Yeah.
I need to uncover, God, what have you given me? Gifts, talents, experiences, so then I can use those in the service of others. And so I'd say number one is you have to become the example by serving others and failing and succeeding over and over. And then you start to realize, okay, I've got this part of my game leveled up. Now I need to work on this part of my game. And I always say it's just this whole person theory that Stephen Covey, came up with. And you've got to work on physical fitness, mental fitness, financial fitness,
Yep.
your faith and your fitness there, right? Your relationship fitness. All of these are who you are. And so when people say be the example, I always say, let's take that a step further. And what does that look like? And Jim, I'll give you this last one is on and off the field. Why I share that one with people is when I'm off the field going into the gym and nobody sees me, nobody's required me to go do that workout. I am now improving myself above and beyond what was asked and what the normal person would do. That's going to significantly improve me. So in life, where are you reading books, listening to podcasts, going to a course, going to Impact, right? Where are you putting yourself into rooms that you can improve yourself? It's not required. It's not part of your daily job. Nobody's asked you or required you to do it, but you did it because you saw your potential in yourself.
Yeah.
That's where I see many people stop and they don't put themselves in these environments where they truly can grow. And that's what one of my coaches says is you do the unrequired work. And most
Ooh.
don't do it. They just do enough to say, I did the required. What if you did the unrequired for seasons and stacked those seasons? Watch out.
I was gonna say, let the party begin at that point,
That's it. It's fun then, right? Ed Milet says this, goes, winning is more fun than fun is fun. And when you start to create wins, life becomes fun. Doesn't mean you're gonna have challenges, but life becomes fun when you actually start to create wins in your life.
It's like it's the light to the dark, right? If you're not celebrating or creating those little wins or celebrating with your team or recognizing or building that human connection, right? Then what's it all for, right? Where does that level of fun start and end? And it's so interesting, as I this last year as I've gone deep and deep and deep on leadership and I've asked questions and I've done podcasts, and I've got on this show or that show and really kind of worked in the concept of leadership. And it always comes back to, you can't lead anybody else if you don't lead yourself. And as you were saying that, Brian, you are the example of that. Like, I've known you a couple years. I've watched you. We've got a friendship. We talk. I mean, I say it to you, brother. I'm like, dude, I inspire, like, you inspire me. How you show up outside of work, how you show up in relationships with your family. You and I were talking, what, maybe a year ago, and you're like, yeah, I'm only doing these types of events and these types of speaking engagements because it does take away time from myself and my family. And what I realized in those moments, as you were kind of navigating that conversation with me, was it fills your cup, man.
Mhm.
Right? Like, doing what you know is right, and being there for your family, or celebrating, or going back to school, or a game, or all those things that you do fill your cup so you can be a great leader in order to lead others in your team. And
Yeah.
that's been something from a through line that I've experienced with talking to so many great leaders like yourself and some other folks, where you know when I was growing up in the world of leadership and business, it was like this self-care. Oh, you got to do this self-care, right? And it was this term that most people talked about. No one really did. It was like, oh, well, maybe I'll get a massage every couple months. And that was like this self-care thing, right? And what I started to realize is self-care happens every day. And what it does is that self-care happens regularly when you prioritize,
Mhm.
and you prioritize the things and how you lead outside of work as well, right? Like, I remember in my younger days, I lived two lives. It was a Jim Morris at work in the corporate office, and it was a Jim Morris outside. And there was similarities and crossover, but I was leading at work differently than I was leading in my personal life. And I just think it's so powerful to make that connection, because you live it, you embody it. I've started to live that over the last couple of years. I've started to celebrate those wins. I've had those experiences. And I just want everybody to hear that, hear how important it is to do it from both standpoints. When did you recognize how important that was in your life, Brian? And did you ever kind of focus on leadership just in business? Like, what, like, did you make a transition recently? Or, I mean, I know it's several years ago because we've been friends for several years, but can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So I would tell her, number one is I'm still on the journey, and it wasn't always this way. When I was a new leader, I mean, I could tell you countless amount of times how I was destroying my health. And I thought the grind, the badge of honor in corporate America, where I spent my first 13 years in the mortgage business, was how many hours you worked, the people that showed up on Saturdays, and that was me. And then I would work on Sundays, visiting open houses and sitting, in condos where we pre-approve people. And like, it was a badge of honor, Jim. It wasn't even, I look back now and it is so comical. We weren't even so much results focused, although results mattered. We had a scoreboard, right? You had top producers and all the things. When we would talk and people would have the cooler talk, or you'd be out and you're like, yeah, man, I'm just grinding. Like, dude, yesterday was 15 hours, and yeah, I only slept 4 hours. And you're going out and you're drinking and you're eating crappy food. And you maybe get to a workout 2 times a week. Like, I mean, that's the life I was in.
Yeah.
And so I share with people all the time is it wasn't always this way. And so if that's where you are today, one, there's hope. Two, you need to be aware of what do you actually want. And this was something that really helped me, Jim, is what I realized all around me is I had some phenomenal mentors in business, right? That taught me how to manage a P&L, how to recruit, how to, engage and develop your team, and like all these things in business that are important skills to have that you're there. But what none of them really taught me until I hired my own coach and I got clear on what I wanted was being an athlete. I had this desire to be fit. I had a desire that growing up in a church and like seeing my parents, been married for as long as they have. And I'm like, I want a great marriage. And then we had kids and I'm like, I want to be a great dad. All these things start to happen. And you realize one, I felt like I wasn't equipped for any of it, right? The first time I got promoted, no idea what I was doing. No idea. Truthfully, I'm like, they kind of figure out I don't know what I'm doing. It's that whole thing of what's there. And then I remember the first time we were bringing,
I've been there. I've been there.
if you haven't been there, let's have a conversation, right? Because I think we've all been there at some point in our life. I remember the first time we were bringing Presley, our oldest, home from the hospital, and she was born in Tampa. And I'm putting her in the car, and Jim literally, I'm like, okay, Nicole, we got to go get a Hummer. We got to get like a tank, and I'm trying to put her in the car seat. And for any of the new parents out there, you remember this. I'm like, did I do it right? I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, they're letting us leave the hospital with this babe. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, guess what? Throughout your leadership journey, there's going to be moments that you're going to need to go back and go, you know what? It worked out. I didn't have it all figured out. I didn't have all the answers. But the secret to what I have found is everything you share, Jim, everything that I've learned and implemented has come from a mentor, someone in my life that I've invited in, or I think God kind of ordained and said, hey, Brian, this person needs to be in your life for the season. They have something to teach you. And I've always been open and curious about that. And it's fascinating to me how people will come in your life when you don't expect them, but then you realize, oh, that's why I needed them.
Yep.
And for me, what I realized in Anchor, when I'm my happiest and I feel my best, I have my best energy, I have my best, what I would say is like emotional intelligence, and I'm in control of like, this is how I feel, this is what I'm going to do, this is my schedule, and I control what I can control. There's a base for me that does revolve around fitness and the discipline it takes. And then also, you'll relate this, of course, my faith. And so I start my mornings and I have a little Bible verse that comes over, and I spend a good 4 or 5 minutes, and there's a quick little prayer, there's a Bible verse. And for me, that starts my mind to go, let me start my mind with that. That's what I'm going to consume first. Then in my morning, there's the workout. I've got time with my family. And so I have designed and created a day in which I can win. And then I schedule in meetings so that those are there for me. And so along my journey, what I started to realize is there's things I need to make sure I do to win the day. And when you reverse engineer that and you look back in your life, I would encourage everybody to do this. Look back when you were your happiest, you were your most successful, and you were actually producing, and you were someone that felt like, man, I'm in a groove, I'm in my flow, whatever that was for you. Go back and reverse engineer. I bet you're probably eating better. You're probably working out and taking care of your health better. If you're, a believer, you were probably reading, you were probably in your Bible, you were probably around great people that were feeding you and were giving you good energy. You were probably serving in some capacity using your talents and your gifts. If you go back and you reverse engineer that and you add this layer of, for me, in the mortgage business, I know I have to have a certain amount of conversations every day. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If I can have 5 to 10 conversations and the quality of which those matter and who they're with matter,
Of course.
I know I'm going to win that day. If I stack those days, 5 days in a week, and I do that 4 weeks in a month, I will absolutely dominate my goals. Done. You need to get that specific and that simplistic about how you're attacking your day, reverse engineer it. And then as you plan out on Sunday nights, getting very tactical, I will look, my workouts are scheduled, my time with my family and the kids' games and the practices. And if it's date night or we're going out somewhere, all that gets scheduled. And then I come back and I make sure now, what are the things that get on my calendar? And what are the things I look at on Sunday night that I either shorten the meeting or I will remove the meeting many
Yeah.
times, or I'll say, you know what? Someone else on the team needs to have that meeting. And if you start to do this, it will feel a little bit clunky. It'll feel a little bit weird at first, but when you get a rhythm to it, you now are actually designing your life the way that you wanted it to be. And watch, you'll start to win and you'll start to enjoy this. It will
Yeah.
not be this battle and friction that many of us have felt.
Well, as you're saying this, right? You're bringing me back to some of those moments, and I mean, everything is in a line in those highest moments of performance, right? And when I'm performing, my relationships grow, my opportunities grow, right? But the thing I think that's so cool about this approach is the reflection piece,
Mhm.
right? Like, we often are moving so fast. We often are adding to the calendar, adding, right? And like, I think you mentioned something on one of your posts recently, um, was like, when you add, you have to subtract as well,
Mhm.
and I think we get caught up. I got to do all the things. And then when we reflect, we go, well, what did we accomplish? Right. And then we feel busy. We feel like we're leading. We feel like we're bringing people down the right path. We may be influencing, we may be getting things done, but because that tension, because that out of alignment approach in you gets translated to everybody else. And I've definitely felt that before.
Well, I'll tell you this is
Definitely.
high level performers will recognize that, and they will sense that you're out of alignment, and you will actually be repelling people that you want to have in your life. I don't want
It's
you to miss
so
this.
it,
When you're around high performers, like I was around some last week, in the frequency in which we're having conversations, when you know someone's in alignment and they're doing what they're called to do and they're enjoying what they're called to do, you will start to attract similar people. And for many of us, we look around like, "Man, I don't know why these people are always in my life." It's because we're operating at a frequency and a level at which we're attracting people, typically struggling with those same things.
yep.
And we wonder why our conversations are not at a higher level. And so that's why, again, being an example, become that person until you are that person. That's not saying you're perfect. Look, none of us are. That's the reality. We all laugh about our imperfections. I'm like, man, I'm really struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. And what I found almost every time, Jim, is when I'm open and honest about that struggle, someone comes along, and even this week, we were able to solve a problem. We're like, hey, we can hire a VA to do that. Brian, you don't want to build out that process and what's going to happen within this recruiting flow. And I'm like, I don't want to do this, guys. Like that really, I don't want to do it, but I know it needs to get done. And I think that's where we limit ourselves. We're like, we got to do it all. We got to do it all. And what I would just invite you to consider is maybe some of the things you're avoiding aren't meant for you to do. They're meant for someone else on your team or to hire out and actually build it. And you operate in your area of genius. And I think that's what's keeping people from leading, what's keeping you from operating at a higher frequency, that you're attracting the right people and you're performing at that higher level. It's wild to me when I see people get into their kind of genius zone and they accept it. Conversations, the rooms, it all changes.
Everything changes. Oh yeah. I can nail it down to the exact moment for me when that happened. Literally.
Yeah,
I just I'm reliving the emotion because it was like everything's coming and everything's in alignment, right?
it's
And it was
real.
like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
this is intense.
yeah.
um, you were talking about, you know, high performers. You were talking about the alignment, the conversations, the energy, right? All those things are so important to me when I was putting together Impact Effect 24. It's really the sole reason of why I call everybody, why I connect with everybody, because I can tell based on that conversation, it could only be 4 or 5 minutes, right? And a couple questions. You and I talked about this, the process that I go through. But I can tell if that frequency isn't there, and I can tell if someone's struggling. So it's an opportunity to offer help and support. It's an opportunity to realign the expectation for the conference, but it's also an opportunity to coach and help someone, right? In a conversation that I didn't know was going to go that route or that way. And I say this because I just talked to someone the other day, and they took a hit in their business. Someone didn't pay them 40,000, and it was a big job, and they had labor to pay, and they're hurting, right? But in that conversation, we started to talk and build human connection and go deeper and share stories. And in that conversation, I could really understand that this is the person that needs to be in this room. They
Mhm.
received it, the coaching, they understood it, we aligned, we both been there. And the change just in that conversation, because it was just someone who is operating at a high frequency and took a hit, man. And I just happened to call them the next day and make sure that, they were in line with coming to the conference. And it was a timing thing.
Mhm.
But the end of that conversation, I could feel the energy transfer. I could feel the frequency, and they were back in alignment. And it was a beautiful thing because they were so excited, and they were coming to the conference next month, and they're excited to meet you and Nicole and Jess and Lauren and all our other speakers. And by the end of the call, they were coming with an excitement to bring value.
Yeah.
Whereas the beginning of the call, they were coming to get, grab, and take.
Mhm.
Right. And it was just this beautiful moment of why we do the calls, why we focus on the folks and curate the room at the level that we do, right? It takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. Let's be real.
Yep.
Um, but it's so important, and it's important because of that proximity that you're talking about, because of that energy transfer. And our goal with Impact Effect 24, and I think we did an amazing job last year, and it's only going to get better this year. And the people we've signed up recently, I mean, is woo, there is some movers and shakers coming to join us. Um, but those are the reasons why we do what we do, why we spend so much time on curation and making sure we connect deeper and build that human connection with everybody that potentially will be joining us.
Mhm.
So I love that you bring that up as far as leadership and celebrating those wins, because we really dive into that with everybody we connect with.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
wait. There's a gift to be given, and there's a gift that you will receive. But if you come in with that attitude of I'm going to serve and give my gifts, regardless of what status or anything there, like I've realized, you know this, you've been around some of the most successful people out there that we look at and go, wow, they've just achieved all these things. Put their pants on the same way. They're just normal guys and gals, and they are doing something in service of others. I always think that that humility and humbling yourself and realizing, you know, God only created one of you.
yeah,
You're special, your experiences, and you may have that one moment, that one connection, that one conversation. And that's why you were meant to be there. When you come with that attitude, it's like you can't help but win, right? And it's
totally,
fun.
totally.
That's that's how we play the game.
Let's go, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for you to join us on stage. I'm excited for you to spend time with the attendees. And there's so much alignment here. And I'm just excited for next month, man. I'm excited to do this thing. And just grateful and thankful for all the folks attending, for you, the other speakers. And I just appreciate you, brother. And we'll see you next month.
Can't wait, man. It's gonna be good.
Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next month. Impact Effect 24, September 17th and 18th.
Don't miss it.